craziest game of the day. Ole Miss beat LSU 55-49 in what must have been the worst defensive performance you could ever remember LSU having in any galaxy brain of a memory. Now, I saw Harold Perkins go down late in the game. I'm not sure, as we're recording this right now, what his status was. But we are living in a world in the SEC West where we are a week removed from Alabama completely and utterly shutting down Ole Miss's offense. Mm-hmm. And now we're watching Ole Miss put up more than 700 yards of total offense in a 55-49 win against LSU, a team that you and many others thought had a chance to win this side of the conference. Mm-hmm. We'll start with LSU and how much of a disaster it is, but this entire side of the conference, like, is Alabama an inevitability again? Like, are we running down that road again as Alabama's kicking Mississippi State's ass as we record this?
Well, are we talking about as an SEC West champion?
Yeah.
I don't know about inevitability.
We're going back to Atlanta. Yeah.
I don't know about inevitability, Ari, but I think to me it seems very clear that there probably is not a playoff team in that side of the division, which is, and I'm sure our listeners can catch us, but I'd like to know the last time an SEC West team, well, I guess maybe last year, but like how many years out of the last 8 years, the SEC West not only not make the playoff, but not have a team that was even in the conversation, because it feels like we might be trending.
But are you making a mistake in thinking that Alabama is not going to be a part of that conversation? Like, that to me is the interesting dynamic of this, because, like, listen, who is the best team in the SEC West with all the information that we have right now?
You got to go Alabama, yeah.
Okay. And if you look at their schedule, they will be favored in every other game for the rest of the regular season.
Well, okay, but that's fine. Ari, Vegas odds are like, they're going to Alabama's a public side, so it's, what are we even talking about? The Vegas odds or whatever. You sound like Nick Saban on December 4th last year right now. But
listen. Well, yeah, there's an indication. Okay. It's not. I'm not saying it's not. They don't just say Alabama minus 17 because there's no merit to. They're very good at beating other teams.
Yeah,
and they will, in my opinion, based on what we see now that we're settling into what Jalen Milroe is and what that offense is going to be. Certainly a world where they go onto a field in Atlanta a win away from making the college football playoff. So I don't know if I would join you on that. What? If they're a one-loss team?
Well, but you don't think they're going to drop another game at some point?
I think it's certainly plausible. I'm not back in on Alabama as one of the four best teams.
Yeah, it's plausible that they.
I'm just saying the path is so there right now. And listen, we can change the subject back to Alabama in a minute, but LSU legitimately died on national television tonight.
Yes, they did, and it's their own fault. Ole Miss. I've liked Ole Miss. I've been high on them. I thought they are a team that can beat a lot of teams. You go on the road in the SEC, you better strap it up every week. And, you can't give up 55 points and expect to win. I don't care what else happened, anything else that happened. If you do that, you are going to lose. And especially if you're on the road in any conference, much less the SEC. So LSU has only itself to blame at this point. They had the talent to have a really special season. It's clear that this year is not going to be the year that they had hoped, that I thought we could see for LSU. And truthfully, Ari, I think the thing that's most confounding about it is I don't even have a good reason for why this has happened to LSU. Do you?
I don't. I really don't. Like, I know that weird. Ole Miss has a very good offense when it's clicking, but to give up 706 yards of offense with the defensive players that they have on that team, it almost seems impossible to me. And funny enough, Nick Terry brought this up, and I have to come clean. I was on the under in this game, and it was an L 5 minutes into the game. It's just like, I don't know how the teams with the players that have the type of talent that LSU has ever gets into a position where it feels it's impossible to get a single stop.
Yeah.
Like, that's to me, like what goes wrong in game planning, what goes wrong in talent development, or anything of that nature to put yourself in a position against an inferior team talent-wise where you don't even have a hope to stop them once in an entire game. Mm-hmm. Like, that to me is alarming. So, I think the good news is we can finally put LSU aside for another year and say, hey, this isn't the team that is going to be making the playoff. Now the question is, and rightfully so, is twofold. One, who is the best team in the SEC West? And will the SEC West have a chance to win? And two, Georgia has been messing around for multiple weeks now. There was a legitimate chance that they could have lost this game to Auburn on Saturday. Does the SEC stink?
Well, we've been on this train for
no, but does the SEC as a whole stink?
Well, I think the odds of the SEC not getting a playoff team are pretty good at this point. Or I don't know about not getting a playoff team. Well, we'll see what Georgia does ultimately. But if Georgia loses a game, Ari, or if they lose the SEC championship, they're not going to have a ton of wins to stand on. Dare I say that there will be some consternation if there's a bunch of one-loss teams or an undefeated team there at the end. That LSU, if they do get in, that Georgia, if they do get in, would be getting in on reputation, not on resume.
So here's the thing. I think that no matter who the SEC champion is, if they only have one loss, they're in. I don't care what helmet it is.
Probably. I think you're probably right.
But I don't know if that's going to happen this year. Like, is it possible that a 2-loss team like LSU figures it out and wins the SEC this year? I think it's technically
Can we not use LSU as the...
This is what you get for being as high on them as you were.
If we're going to talk about a 2-loss team getting in the playoff, Ari, it needs to be a 1-loss team currently, like an Alabama or like a, dare I say, Texas A&M, something like that.
Let the record show, Your Honor, that we're taking our LSU preseason pick and opting and tapping out from it to switch to Alabama. Do you believe?
And Ari, I will say that this was while Georgia was on the mat against Auburn. But I was at the press box today, and I think it was Pat Forty from Yahoo who mentioned to me who had Kentucky and Mizzou as the possible last undefeated teams in the SEC. I'm not sure I believe in those teams long term. Neither one of them have a win to sort of hang their hat on just yet. But undefeated is still undefeated, Ari.
And we'll get to those. We'll get to those teams later in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I think we need to talk a minute about Georgia. Did you watch the game at all today?
I did watch quite a bit of it. I had my custom multi-view that I created on my own. Watching up, I had a second screen while I was in Folsom Field today. And Georgia, it's a lot of messing around every week.
But here's the question I want to ask you, because I'm happy
down
you said
double
that.
digits at home to South Carolina a couple weeks ago.
I'm happy you said that.
Mm-hmm.
Messing around. Because my notion of the South Carolina game was just that. Messing around is a synonym for grab ass.
Mm-hmm.
Is Georgia just messing around? Or does Georgia have offensive warts that are going to rear their ugly head in a big-time matchup whenever that occurs, and they're going to lose because of it?
Can it be both?
Are they messing around, or do they have ailments?
It should be both. You have no business letting Auburn move the football as easily and as consistently as they did today. And also, just offensively, you should be better on the line of scrimmage and be more competent in terms of getting the ball to your skill position players before you end up where you've got to force feed the ball to Brock Bowers. God bless him.
And by the way, stepped up like an actual man out there today.
Here's the thing with Brock Bowers. People get annoyed with the Brock Bowers conversation because he doesn't put up crazy numbers and people talk about him like a god tier player. But it's because that's just who he is. Like, I talk to a lot of coaches. I've had multiple coaches inside and outside of the SEC say that Brock Bowers is the best player in the country. I've had that multiple times in the last, 2-something years, that he does so many things well: blocking, catching, run after the catch, pure speed, strength. Like, that's the best player in the country. And people scoff at it because he'll have 4 catches for 30 yards in some games, and Georgia doesn't need to give him the ball as much as he is. He's a pretty low ego sort of guy. He lays pretty low. But like you saw today, that this is why people talk about him in that way, because it seems like when he's needed, he is unbelievable. And he made play after play after play and forced people to tackle him. And they had a hard time doing it, Ari.
Yeah. And I see a lot of comments on Twitter. I think that this is just commonplace when your team is not firing on all cylinders. There are a lot of Georgia fans who are not happy with Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator.
Bad day for all coordinators today.
Yeah.
I think I've heard a call for at least 15 coordinators to be fired today, Ari.
Yeah. So I'm on high alert. I don't know if you think this is a tough stretch, but if you go look at Georgia's schedule, the one that we've all mocked all year for not having any tests, they don't have a Alabama on there. They don't have a Dave Ubbin LSU, the version of LSU that you thought they were going to be.
Before we move on, there is Ari. That version of LSU can show up at any moment, can they not? They already have 2 losses.
But even that version of LSU isn't on the schedule. There is no LSU on the schedule.
Yes.
But here's their stretch that I want you to tell me about, like on a scale from 1 to 10, how hard getting through it will be undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Florida, Mizzou, Ole Miss, Tennessee in 1 month. Back to back to back to back.
It is hard for me to envision them not losing one of those games.
So that's where we're at right now with the SEC and the 2-time defending national champions.
Well, it's worth noting, Ari, because the Georgia conversation is complicated because they are Georgia. They are the 2-time defending national champions. There is this notion that, well, you got to vote them number 1 because they haven't lost. They won the championship. If you were voting on what you've done on the field this year, could you put Georgia in the top 7?
Top 7?
Top 5.
It would have to be a discussion, and I think that's the answer you're looking for. I don't know if it's a definitive
I think you could very clearly not. Like, what have they done this year that has impressed you?